Good morning, everybody. It's time to put into practice everything you've been doing for the last several assignments and write an actual college-level research paper. I've broken the assignment up into five steps. 1, find a topic. 2, research that topic and create annotated bibliographies for your sources. 3, create an introductory paragraph. 4, create an outline. And 5, turn in a completed paper. And that includes an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. This is a little review, but let's discuss them one at a time. Sometimes in lots of classes, the professor simply gives you a topic. You will write a 25-page paper on the significance of gender roles in international monetary policy negotiations. See? Easy. But here you have to choose your own topic. So what to do? Well, what interests you? Me, I'm interested in lots of things, such as social issues, rap music. In fact, I once had a thoroughly unsuccessful career as YouTube rapper P-Rob Slim.
Tools to the hidden hands are using you. Don't be delusional. Rulers of the world are confusing you, trying to separate us with hate and racism.
If you think that was bad, you should have seen my raps when I was a kid.
I rhyme like a dime, cause I just don't have time. Drink beer on a pier. Can't hear me, dude. Too cool for you, cuh.
Anyway, my failed rap career aside, I'm interested in everything from basketball to home gardening, and I could do thoughtful academic research on anything I like. For example, I could research the pros and cons of introducing a 4-point shot in basketball. And I guarantee you that I could find authoritative sources for that topic on Google Scholar. For example, if I search up basketball strategy, I find lots of authoritative sources that discuss it. And in an annotated bibliography on one of these sources, I could relate how a 4-point shot might enhance, change, or maybe even harm the game of basketball by changing its existing strategy. I could even search up sources that have nothing to do with basketball. For example, I might search up a source on hand-eye coordination and end up discussing how robotics might help athletes learn how to better shoot a 4-point shot. Who knows where my research might lead me? I'll just keep researching and building annotated bibliographies until I feel I've created enough solid writing to build a research paper out of it. But forget basketball. I suggest you pick a topic that you are not only interested in, but also know something about already. That way your mind is already primed to discuss it. Let's look at the actual topic I chose for this assignment. Because I've spent most of my life on Pacific Islands and I grew up in Micronesia, I'm particularly concerned about climate change. For this paper, you can see climate change as the broader topic, which I narrowed down to climate change in the Pacific, and narrowed even further to finding ways that people living on Pacific Islands can adapt to climate change. Now away I go to the next step. Because I narrowed my topic, it gives me some very specific things to research. Because this is an issue I already know a little about, I know I want to focus that research on areas such as ocean colonization, indigenous cultural knowledge, and migration, or what's known as Pacific diaspora. I found all my sources on YouTube, Google Scholar, and EBSCO, and here are the annotated bibliographies I created. The first thing I did, of course, is evaluate these sources before I even read them. Remember, you evaluate for authority, currency, and relevance. In fact, I looked at about a dozen sources before I settled on these 5, and I even wrote 2 other annotated bibliographies that I ended up not using for the paper. And very importantly, I made sure to include my works cited and in-text citations as well as proper signal phrases. You just have to accept that this is the nature of research, that in order to write a good research paper, you will end up looking at and writing about sources you may not even use until you are absolutely sure you have all the information and solid writing that you will need to write your paper. As such, if you compare the writing in my annotated bibliographies to the writing in my paper, you'll find that it is nearly identical. You know how to write an introductory paragraph. You just had an assignment on this. Begin with an attention-grabbing sentence, deliver some background on the topic, then craft a thesis statement that outlines the rest of the paper. Let's take another real quick look at mine. Here's my attention-grabbing sentence. Here's my background informed by my research and what I already know about this topic. And here's my thesis statement, which states my position and provides an outline for the rest of the paper. Then, based on my thesis, I created an outline that looks like this. The outline I'm looking for is very simple. You're going to tell us your attention-grabbing sentence, you're going to summarize the background, and you're going to write down your thesis statement. Then, for each of your main supporting points, you're going to write down what sources you used. And then finally, you're going to explain your conclusion. So once you've completed your introductory paragraph and thesis, and you have body paragraphs that you create from your annotated bibliographies, now you just need to finish your paper with a conclusion. Some people say that a conclusion is a restatement of your introduction and thesis. But that's pretty boring, telling people that you just told them what you said you were going to tell them. Instead, I suggest you use your conclusion to make a final appeal with a moving quote or metaphor and by projecting forward in time or process as it relates to your topic. Here, take a look at mine.
Here is my conclusion. I quote my friend Kathy and say, I hope I'm wrong about humanity not being able to stop climate change. Then I project forward 50 years, imagining two worlds, one where we're prepared for climate change and one where we did not. This creates my final appeal, reinforcing the idea that we should prepare for climate change and not be the world that didn't. It's really simple writing a conclusion, so keep it short and simple like I did. Another thing I could have done in my conclusion is create an historical metaphor or comparison. For example, I might have compared climate change to the COVID epidemic, saying our lack of global preparedness for a pandemic made the pandemic worse, given that scientists had been saying for years that the likelihood of a global pandemic was pretty high. Same thing for climate change. All the scientists say it's coming, so let's do something about it so that we don't end up unprepared like we were for COVID.
Now there's just a couple final things to do before you turn in your paper. The first, proofread. There's nobody in this world, especially me, who wants to read a messy piece of writing. Look at the grammar and spelling suggestions that Google Docs gives you, those squiggly little red or green lines you see. If it says you misspelled a word, odds are you probably did. So fix it! And I especially do not want to see comma splices and run-ons, 1 point off for each one I find. And make sure you cite your sources correctly with signal phrases or in-text citations that point alphabetically to your works cited page. Points off for those errors too. Chill out, dude. You're right, Dougie. I should take out my frustrations on something else. Excuse me. But seriously, it is 1 point off for grammar and punctuation mistakes. The last thing you're required to do before you turn in your final draft is run it through an originality report. This lets you know if any unintentional instances of plagiarism have crept into your paper. It points them out and gives you the opportunity to fix them. Here's how it works.
So here I have the final draft of my paper, and I intentionally included some plagiarism for this example. So once you've finished writing your paper, all you do is click Run here besides Originality Report. Then you wait while it processes your paper. Then you click here, View Originality Report. So you can see here that I have two flagged passages. At first, you just see them highlighted in gray, but if you click over here, it'll not only show you the passage that is plagiarized, but it'll give you the source so that you can go back and fix it. So if the report shows that you have plagiarism in your paper, you need to fix it, run another originality report until you have an absolutely clean paper, then click Resubmit.
So make sure you proofread, make sure you get a clean originality report, and make sure you do assignments 9A, B, C, D, and E in that order. If you try to skip one and go on to the next, I'm just going to send it back to you. You have about 3 weeks to complete this entire assignment, which is plenty of time, but do not procrastinate. It will take a good bit of effort on your part to write a strong paper, and that's exactly what I am expecting. Lastly, let's take a look at the grading rubric for assignment 9E.
These are the exact criteria I will use to grade your paper. You should, in fact, consult this rubric before you turn in your final draft. Use it as a checklist to make sure you know you are going to get an A. For example, do you have 12-point Times New Roman font? Is your essay double-spaced throughout? Do you have proper margins? Is your title centered? Do you have a good title? Do you have a good thesis statement? Do you have the required number of sources? Are your sources cited properly? That means, do you have proper signal phrases, in-text citations? Do they point alphabetically to a properly formatted works cited page?
Okay, that's about it. Oh, it's my friend Eminem. He agreed to be in the next assignment video, so get busy and let me know if you have any questions. What's up, Em? P-Rob Slim at your service.